Yo, what up? My name is Norman. We are here in my studio here in Chicago, uh, just south of downtown, a little bit west over in McKinley Park. Uh, I get a second to hang out with my main man, Kennedy from Globetrotter, friend and family forever. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk with y'all and share a little bit of my story.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah, so I'm a furniture designer here in Chicago. I'm also an educator at UIC School of Design. And a lot of my work is object-based, but I get to do a little bit of playing in environments and space. So I'm designing a currently largest, most proud project is probably a pavilion for Anna and Frederick Douglass here in Chicago.
Amazing. Now let's dial it front. Let's go. Give us a little bit of background, like your love for design, this calling. It's been a busy past couple of months or
Decade.
year. Yeah, it's been a busy decade. Yeah, give us a little bit of rundown. Chicago, what inspired this? A little bit of your background. Tell us where this whole thing.
So I started building things. I don't know if I called myself a furniture designer at the time, but I was designing things like, the Silver Room in Chicago before it moved to its new space. I used to design things for that. Kennedy had a store called
Casariso.
Casa de Sol, yeah, on Division Avenue.
Yes.
And so I was the go-to guy for
Yes.
build me this, build me that. I'm thinking about this, and here's some money, and it needs to be done in a week. was
Pretty much.
was normally the turnaround.
Yes.
But this I enjoyed a lot. I furthered my career by I started at Harold Washington College, which was affordable, and which made sense to me at the time because I was a little timid to go off to college. Eventually, I got the guts to go to Columbia College, ran into the wood shop and started making things in that space. And then later in life, I went back to the School of the Art Institute and got my degree, my master's degree in design objects. And this is where I learned how to tell stories through objects. I also found that there wasn't no cats in this field that really looked like me. So I found myself in offices where I was, again, felt very tokenized and not a really popular token at that. And so I was a CAD monkey is what a lot of people called me. I jumped out of that field and started doing my own thing in my own studio in my own way, taking all of the skills that I had learned along the way and started putting them towards, objects that I wanted to do, that I wanted to see, that had a narrative that was closer to me or those that I surround myself with. And that is when this level of freedom came about. Like, you claim the name as a designer, and then you start to make things that really speak to those that surround yourself with. I started looking at references from Africa. There's a black man inside of me.
Yes,
And on
indeed.
the outside of me.
Yes, indeed.
And so really looking at, my ancestors, things that have been done that I would never see in the field of design today. And so really trying to just implement these cultural references that I found really important to my practice, but also to the next designer who's looking to reference something that looks like my hometown. My hometown beyond Chicago is somewhere in the continent. And there's such a rich amount of craft that happens on the continent that I feel like are almost never referenced. And
The African continent. You mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
African continent,
Yes.
that are hardly ever referenced in what we look at as modern and contemporary outlets today. And so really just trying to reach a particular point, and then bring along as many as I can along the way. So I really try and load my studio with young interested designers who are willing to get their hands dirty while also, you know, wandering through this design profession. I think there's a real strong tie between like hands-on and this sort of digital format. And so if you're actually making these things, you can see where the flaws lie. You can see where these things can be made better or easier, or there's just a bit more of a learning aspect in being able to go from the sketch to the small scale prototype to, you know, the larger, more tangible thing. And so that I try and practice that here in my studio through all of our projects. I have a lot of young project managers that work here in the studio, and it's really satisfying that they get to walk away every day with some sort of a new learning or challenge.
I've noticed that with the team, with your work, and talking about the continent, I've noticed that even with the new outputs you have, even the namings and all that. Talk to me about that. I know Simi, like there's been some of these references, which I really love.
Yeah, I got this thing with like, you know, language. I go to all these other countries and you feel like so out of place, you know, even when they do reference like, you know, they speak English because you're president, you know, but in, you know, from Italy to Germany to, you know, all these different places where there's a language which almost identifies the culture itself, you know, and I think about like, how can I tie myself, my hood, closer to something way bigger than we all are? And I think about the language. I think about the relevance of a language as it applies to a particular neighborhood. And so I've been looking at words in the Yoruban language and really thinking about how to best like brand that as the new cool. So, you know, I have a chair called the semi stool, which in Yoruba means to relax. I have an Africana chair or collection of things, and I'm working on a new member of that collection. And I'm really thinking about how language plays such a big role. And, you know, can I say that through design objects? Can I communicate that? Can I communicate that through graphic design, you know, and things of that nature where we all understand. I mean, it's without a doubt and no question about it that black people are the coolest motherfuckers on the planet, no matter what.
Speak on it.
And the beauty of us exhibiting the cool, exploring the cool, and then putting that out to the world, I feel like there will be followers.
Unapologetically.
Yeah, and so that's sort of my push with like thinking through how can I do that with objects? How can I relay like a language through objects? And I think this is what I've found to be a great avenue for me.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's been interesting watching. A lot of beautiful things have been going on. You've been on the road, you know, talk to me, the biennial, like all of this stuff. What has the last 12 to 18 months looked like?
Oh,
Talk to me.
12 to, yeah, the last year has been really,
right?
really incredible because, you know, being asked to be at the biennial is like it's like, you know, Jesse Owens being invited to the Olympics, you know, like how do you, you know, so it took me a while to like swallow that, like this shit is real. So like you're going to be in Venice and showing stuff. And then to find out it's central, it's in the rotunda. But what excited me more than that was to be sort of thinking about making, designing, preparing, exhibiting something that's been briefed by Leslie Loco as with the title leading words, Africa as the laboratory of the future. It meant a lot to me. It meant that
You were on the right track.
yeah, exactly. I'm not the only. It really assured me that I'm not the only one that's thinking about this as an opportunity.
Yes.
And the way she explained it as like really uh, breaking it down that in the entire world, like each culture has had a chance to be on the main stage and talking about how Africa has constantly been
Reference, but probably under the stories where
in a negative
shots,
light.
yeah, negative,
You
but
know,
mostly.
but through COVID, like Africa, who you would expect to be this
Yes.
third world country, would fall
Totally. Yeah.
completely shine through this entire thing. And I'm not saying that death is like that was
Yes.
painful for everyone,
Yes.
but to know that they were in a position to handle that, and that she was bringing all these valid points to the table and saying, "Listen, it's our turn," was just I
Powerful.
don't know that just
Powerful.
inspired me all the way. And so thinking about my position as a designer, but also thinking about plastics, which I never had a concentration in like what could be done with plastics. I was always thrilled by, precious plastics and what's this group out of Indonesia, Space Available. Looking at the way in which people from other countries were really handling the plastic problem, and then thinking about what I could do from a studio practice here in
Yeah. Just
Chicago.
reimagining it. Yeah.
Yeah, just how do I reimagine the possibilities of that? And then once I learned a lot about it and I saw what it could go to, I started to think about what if plastic was our new clay. The love that we have for like earth and clay. Uh, Plastic is just a, a byproduct of our planet. It's petroleum, uh, taken to a lot of wrong directions. But I think, about that material and how we could uh, reappropriate it to do something completely different. And so playing around in this material, but also thinking about the craft of basket weaving, the craft of coiling as it pertains to ceramics, and then this real hand involvement with that particular material to go about reimagining like basketry, reimagining weaving and these real hands-on things. And so, with the outcomes we had, I think it was exactly what Leslie Loca was asking us to do: explore, think about, uh, play in it, make mistakes, and figure it out from there. And I think the main ask that I felt like Leslie Loca was providing for us was we need room to explore.
Yes.
Hence the African Institute of Architecture, I think is the name of her firm, or her school. This Harvard-like university in Ghana.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, she's doing it all right. She's doing like all the things that we imagine.
Now, but imagine with
Our
all of this
remedies.
inspiration, you need to go out there.
Yeah.
Imagine how you feel about that little. Imagine
On
being
the
on
ground?
the ground. On the
Ah.
ground?
Sick.
People?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All thinking and working alike towards us. Yeah. So it was a real honor to be there. I got to work with some really beautiful artists that are doing great things across the nation. A lot of them in the Midwest, but really working alongside some real professionals in the field, thinking through all the amazing work that they've been doing, and then having them as an ear to sort of bounce ideas off of was really awesome.
Amazing. Well, we're proud of you.
Thank you, fam. It's been amazing.
Yeah. What's the next?
Yeah, so I'll be showing work with Arn Company. That's my gallery. But I'll also be doing some more work in plastics. So I'm getting to further explore
Yes. Yes. Yes.
plastics, get a little beefier with it. It's it's gonna
Looking
be hot,
forward to
B.
what that's supposed to look like.
Yeah. So am I. I'm still exploring. So
Let's see
it's,
what Norman, how you interpret that actually.
yeah, no, I'm being very intuitive. Nothing's like exact, but
Yes.
the fun is there.
Yes.
I think when I stop having fun, that's when I'm like ready for a new project.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
So, Globetrotter, thank you, fam. Thank you.
congrats, baby. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, the world.
Fam, we appreciate you.
I look forward to meeting some more of your people
Yes,
down in
indeed.
Jakarta.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yo, what's happening? I'm Norman Teague. I'm here in Chicago in my studio. I'm a furniture designer here. I'm also an educator at UIC in the School of Design. And this is Globetrotter.
Yes, sir.